right, welcome everyone back to GoatCast, the GoatCast podcast. We are back with another episode this week. NBA's back in full swing, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Of course, we're going to do the shore of the week this week. Interesting one this week. So let's jump right in. The big news this week was the blockbuster trade between the Clippers and the Philadelphia Sixers. And I've voiced my opinion on this on my other channel, GoatCast Sports. So if you want to check out my feelings on this trade, you can check that out over there. I'll link it in the description. But I'm going to just piggyback off of that. And I thought it was a weird trade. If you don't know the full trade details, James Harden, PJ Tucker, and can't even say the nice name, but Phillip, he's a rookie, will be going to the Los Angeles Clippers, while Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, Kenyon Martin Jr., as well as several draft picks will be going the way of Philly. And to me, if you really dissect this trade, you really understand that Philly won, and they won pretty big because they got a ton of expiring contracts, so they'll have plenty of money when it comes to the offseason and free agency. They got rid of the cancer that is James Harden, who threw his little temper tantrum and was able to somehow finagle that into getting what he wanted. And as we've seen thus far this season, they haven't missed a beat. So it's not as if they needed this trade to better them as a team, because they're already pretty solid. They needed this to get rid of the problem child, and they were successful. And I think they did a bang up job. I think adding that many wing players, I mean, that's, it's kind of redundant. And it was necessary for the Clippers to have those guys, because you have two guys that cannot stay on the court in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, PG-13. They can't stay on the court. So you needed those solid defending wings to be able to plug them in when one of those two go down. So now you lose that. Philly now acquires that. So now, on top of already being a solid team out east, they now have a bunch of guys they can plug in, and they can be really they're not going to, I don't think they're going to put them over the top and make them contenders over teams like Milwaukee or Boston, but at the same time, I believe that these players are going to make Philly a much better team, and they're guys that can come in and be productive for spot minutes and really, do some things that will help them win probably some close games, and give guys like Joel Embiid rest, and you don't have to worry about a big drop off in productivity. Meanwhile, the Clippers have to hope that they get the best version of James Harden, and I'm pretty sure they will. He knows the situation he's going into. He knows that the Clippers are a team that basically depend on Kawhi Leonard, number one, and Paul George, number two. So he's going to come in and probably be the third option. There's no probably, he will be the third option, and unless one of those guys go down, that's going to have to be pretty much where he stays, and he's got to make the best of that. And if he's being the distributor, the point guard that he can be, that he was for a while in Philly, that he was for a while in Brooklyn, when he was, just killing it as far as playing the point. He's got a cast that can really thrive off of that. The real knock against the Clippers, where they didn't have a basically a main point guard. So they were kind of playing point guard by committee. And we know Russell Westbrook he's not your traditional point guard. So he's not the Chris Pauls of the world, the Jason Kidds. He's not one of those guys. So he will bring the ball down from time to time, but most of the time they default to one of their other wings. So now they have a guy that can play point guard for long stretches for pretty much the whole game, and a guy that can play make, and a guy that can get the ball to the right person at the right time, can kind of be the floor general that are getting guys where they need to be. And so that's what they get in James Harden. PJ Tucker, he's much older. He's a very undersized big. How he's maintained, I don't know. He's just a strong guy. He's just a guy that's not scared to get in there and push guys around and play some old school rough and tough basketball. But that takes its toll on you after a while, and he's getting up there. So, I don't know how much he will be a factor as far as his playing time with a team like the Clippers. But I do know James Harden will most likely get a lot of minutes and probably, start for them and be their point guard, basically. And how does this affect Russell Westbrook, who so far this season has been playing fairly well? He's been playing under control for the most part. And now he's going to have to take a back seat some, and that could be a problem. If I'm Ty Lue, I'm going to try. And Ty Lue's a great coach. And I said this in the video I did for the James Harden trade, that if anybody can get these guys to somehow gel and somehow be cohesive, it is Ty Lue. And I think that this will be one of those moments where he'll have to thrive as a great player coach, because he's going to have to somehow talk Russell Westbrook into taking somewhat of a back seat. And we've got to see if Russell Westbrook will potentially come off the bench, if Russell Westbrook will understand that he's not going to get as many touches as he's been getting, and that some of his numbers are probably going to go down. But they still need his intensity. They still need his hustle. They still need everything he provides, other than maybe his scoring or his playmaking, for the most part, somewhat playmaking. They're going to need him to really just be that energizer off the bench who can do all these other little things, who can be a scorer in doses, who can, defend all right, and who can run the point and kind of run the second unit. So I think that's what Ty Lue's going to be tasked with, is getting Harden to be playmaker Harden, and getting Russell Westbrook to understand that he's got to most likely be way down the chart when it comes to the depth chart as far as the Clippers go. He is now going to be maybe not even a fourth. He won't even be the fourth man on the pole. He will probably be a fifth option or a sixth option when it comes to scoring and when it comes to having the ball in their hands. And, that could be, you just don't know, because, Russell's, he's a guy that he's not going to, he believes in himself. Let's say that. And I'm sure he'll believe that he belongs on the court and he belongs in the on the depth chart. Just where? So, with that said, I don't think the Clippers got better. That was my only issue, and that's why I say Philly won, because usually when you have these blockbuster trades, you do it to get better. And I don't think Harden makes them any better than they were 2 weeks ago or last week during the opening week. I really do not think that they're any better today than they were back then. Sorry, excuse me. So with that said, I'm one of those people that are in a wait and see situation with them. I'm not going to say, oh, we've seen ESPN say this is the best team in the league now. There should be penciled in to win the West and all this other thing. No. If this were this group of guys 6-7 years ago, absolutely I could say that, or I could see that. I mean, that is a beast of a team. But this is all these guys in their 30s, and some of them deep 30s, like, Harden and guys like that. So these are no spring chickens. And as we've seen, Kawhi has racked up so many injuries throughout these years that he is pretty much, you can't rely on him at all. Paul George the same. When it comes to playoff time, playoff P, hit and miss. James Harden, hit and miss. Russell Westbrook, he's hit and miss as well. He can give you a lot, but he can also take away a lot from your team in a playoff scenario. And of course, we've seen Kawhi be Superman for a team and be that man, be that guy. But at this age and with as much mileage as his body's been through, well, we'll say his body's been through a lot of mileage, but as much as he's been hurt and injured, every time he kind of gets into his groove, it seems he goes right back down. And they can't afford that if they want to play long into the postseason. And I can't trust those guys. So that's the key to this. You can't trust that group of guys to stay on the court together, or to be cohesive, or to show up in the playoffs. So I've got to hold out some reservation for the Clippers. I feel like Philly easily won that trade. If it doesn't work, they can go back to the drawing board this offseason and really look to bring in somebody. I mean, the free agent market isn't looking that great, but they have a lot of money to offer. They're probably going to need it to keep Tyrese Maxey, because a lot of teams are probably going to be looking for him and looking at his services because of how he's risen throughout these seasons. So one of these, young teams might want to snatch him up and make him a centerpiece. So they're going to have to be mindful of that. So getting all these expiring contracts means that they have some money to play with when it comes time to negotiate with some of these guys. So look for Philly to continue to be a contender out east. I actually put them as pretenders in my video for the contenders and pretenders in the east. But now that they've cut off the cursed limb, they are free to really show what they can do. And they've looked good so far. So they've done it without James Harden, and I think they'll continue to do it without him, because now they've gotten rid of him. And the Clippers, I've thought they've looked good so far this season, and now I hope James Harden doesn't mess up that flow. I hope they can be consistent, and I hope that they can be cohesive as a unit, and that James Harden will be the icing on the cake. Which I didn't think. I felt like the Clippers were a team where it's not broke, so don't fix it. I never understood why they were rushing out to get Harden. I guess they want a solid point guard. I feel like you could have got that from a lot of places where you didn't have to give up so much as they did, and then they would have had lots of money to play with those guys on those expiring contracts. And if Kawhi and Paul George just fizzled out again, they would have some way to bring in somebody, or they could potentially make some big moves in the offseason. But we'll see what the Clippers get from this trade. And I think Philly will, I don't know how much those guys will will be in the rotation, but I think they've got their team that they want, and that team is pretty good. So moving on, we're going to talk about some overachievers, underachievers so far in the association. For most teams, they're only 5 games deep, so it's very early to say who's overachieving and who's underachieving. I'm just going to pick one because I don't feel like going through that. I don't want this to be another long-winded episode, so I'm going to just pick one. I'll start with the overachiever. I think the Golden State Warriors are overachieving big time. I was very down on those guys coming into this season, and even after game 1 when they lost to Phoenix, even though it was a really close and good game, I wrote them off. I just said they're way too undersized, they're way too old, it's not going to work, but they're making it work. I just saw them trounce New Orleans Pelicans, who I thought was going to be a sleeper team, and there's still time. It's early, so and Zion's getting back into game shape, so you can't expect them to be world beaters in 4 games, but I expected them to play a little better than they did against the Warriors and not just get destroyed and dismantled. Ever since and Chris Paul's been playing well. CP3, age 38, playing some phenomenal basketball. Really coming off the bench for the first time in his career. He's embracing it, and he's actually making the second unit better. And he's able to score more, and he's able to get to his spots more because he's not playing against starters. He's playing against, most times, teams' secondary players. So he's been a bright spot. Draymond's Draymond, and Steph is definitely Steph. He's playing phenomenal basketball so far early in the season. He's just Steph. And as I said in the last podcast, he's creeping into that GOAT debate. I'm sorry. You guys can say no, and you can say whatever you want to say. My reason why I'm not putting him there yet is because a few things I talked about in the last episode. But if he keeps up the things that he's doing, there'll be no way we can say, and especially if the Warriors win another chip, you can't deny it. In that top 10 area, you got to put Steph in there. So he's doing some GOAT-like things right now, and the Warriors are just clicking. And I thought that we would start seeing the cracks show, and maybe Steve Kerr his seat might be getting a little hot over there, but they've proven me completely wrong so far this season, and I'm happy about it. I'm glad to see that they are striving. It's a long season though, and they're an older team, so we'll see if this is just a trend or if this is what the Warriors really are. So stay tuned to that. Now, my underachieving team so far, the Memphis Grizzlies, man, they look terrible. 0-4, I think they are, or 0-5 now. I think they're 0-4. This is a team I thought was going to be a wrecking ball in the West. And I felt like they would come in with this chip on their shoulder after what the Lakers did to them in the playoffs, after being a top with a 3 team out West. Them getting knocked out in the first round would motivate them. Their leader, their star, Ja Morant, being suspended for as long as he is, they would, band together and want to do this to help him out, to show him that they've got his back and they're going to win games. And when he comes back, they're ready to go. That's not happening. And I thought that the Marcus Smart acquisition, even Derrick Rose acquisition, would help them. But we got to really think about it. They're missing 2 starters, Ja Morant and Steve Adams. Steven Adams is out for the season, so they're missing their big, and they're missing their superstar. So if you think about it, most teams in the NBA, if you're missing two of your starters, two pretty important starters, it does disrupt the flow of your team, and you're usually not able to get some of the wins that you probably would have gotten if those two guys were in. So what can I say? Memphis, I'm going to wait and see for them. Hopefully when Ja comes back, they'll be a little better. I mean, they've been competitive in these games. I can't remember who they were playing. It was a close game. I can't remember which team it was, but they played well. They're not. Most of the games are not getting blown out, but they're just not able to close. And maybe that's the thing that they're missing mostly from Ja, is the ability for someone to close, to have a closer on their team. With this team, they have a lot of guys that are solid, but you don't have that go-to guy. And I think that's what's really showing throughout this season so far. And they're really underachieving. And I hate that I did two Western Conference teams. But I will say that the Indiana Pacers are looking good out east. I said that in my sleepers video. If you want to check that out, go to my other channel, GoatCast Sports. They were one of my top 5 sleeper teams, and they are playing better. Chicago's playing good, really good. And Zach LaVine, he got the check, he got his contract. So, you know, it's not a contract season, but he's playing like he's thanking them for every penny he got. So, you know, Zach LaVine's been a beast so far this season. So Chicago, Indiana look good. Out west, the Lakers, pump the brakes on the Lakers. They're going to be a solid team. It's still early. They still got new pieces they're trying to put together and get them going and get them acclimated. But as good as LeBron is, as good as Anthony Davis is, they're just not overwhelming teams. And I watched their game against the Orlando Magic, and they need some, I don't know. They have youth. They just need a playmaker in the same vein as LeBron, which are very few and far between. And that's what they're missing. I think that's what they're slowly missing. D'Angelo Russell looked good his last game, but he's a guy that can disappear for stretches in the season and in the playoffs. You know, AD has been playing like a beast, but how long will that last? You know, if that's going to be, if this is the last few games are what we're going to see from AD all season, he's going to be in that MVP conversation, but he's not able to take over the game like, say, LeBron can or has. So they need that type of player. They need somebody that can just go out there and just run over teams, run through teams. And, you know, you cannot bet on year 21 LeBron being able to do that. You just can't. You cannot rely on that. Not during the season. You can try to maybe rely on that come playoff time, but you do not want to have to rely on LeBron to do that every single game, even going against Orlando Magic and teams like that. No. So, Lakers, I'm going to pump the brakes on them. Not underachieving, I would say, but they're just not what a lot of analysts and sports media people out there try to make them out to be. They're just not that yet. They might blossom into that at some point, but not yet. And that's, I mean, other underachieving teams, that's it. I mean, those are all, like I said, Memphis and LA. For me, the Lakers are pretty much looking like, I'm about to be a little sketchy on Milwaukee. I picked them to win it all, and they're going to be a beast of a team, I feel. But it may take them a little more time than I thought. I thought they were gelling after the first game, but we saw that blowout in against Atlanta. So, you know, we might want to pump the brakes on them a little bit too, because they're good, but they have some flaws, and they're going to have to work those flaws out. But anyway, we're going to move into the short of the week so we can get up out of here. The short of the week this week, actually a Michael Jordan short one, but I'm not doing no more Mike right now. So the second place YouTube short from my channel, GoatCast Sports, was Victor Wembanyama, and us tempering some of our expectation for him. He's a 19-year-old. He played most of his basketball in France, so he's getting accustomed to the NBA game, which is probably a little more physical, a little more demanding, and he's got a lot of pressure and a lot of spotlights on him. Last year, I don't think they televised one San Antonio Spurs game. So far this season, I've been able to watch 3 of them, and they're only 4 games deep. So that shows you that there's a lot of eyes on this guy, and he's so far hasn't been a world beater, and a lot of them are comparing him to LeBron, which is not a fair assessment. LeBron came in of course, he was a teenager, and he came in like a bulldozer, and the hype wasn't too much for him. But Victor is not LeBron. I see people saying, kind of trying to make that comparison, but you just can't, because they're 2 different body types, they're 2 different positions, they're 2 different players, 2 different mindsets, 2 different skill sets. So you cannot expect greatness can be achieved many ways in the NBA, and not just through scoring. I think that's what a lot of people are basing their opinions on Victor with, is the fact that he's not wowing us with his scoring. He's not even wowing us with his rebounding. He's averaging 16.3 a game right now. He's averaging, I believe, 7.5 rebounds, which isn't, that for a guy 7'4", that's not groundbreaking. But if you watched that game last night, where they beat the Suns by 1 point, when they trailed the entire game, led for 2.2 seconds the entire game, but that's all they needed. And I've said this many times, you cannot teach 7'4". You just can't. In an 8-foot wingspan, you can't teach that. So the fact that he's nimble, he's able to move with that much height and those lanky arms and lanky legs and all of that, the way he's able to move on the court lets you know that this guy is going to be a problem at some point, and he makes a huge impact on the defensive end. Even just being there, just extending his arms, changes the way somebody has to position themselves to shoot a shot. Changes the way somebody has to go up for, even if they get a rebound or get in the paint. It changes how they have to go up. So he's making an impact, just not in the vein or in the way we expect him to. We expect him to be a world beater scorer and grabbing tons of rebounds. That'll come. He'll do that. But right now, his impact and where he's needed is defensively. And he's actually doing fairly well there. And I think that we need to just take a step back and let this guy mature and let him grow into the player that he's going to be. It's not going to happen overnight, and we're seeing it. And we're in the what I say the fast food era, where we want everything right away. We want our food right away. We want our entertainment right away. We want our videos right away. If YouTube buffers, we're upset. If we're playing a game and there's a loading screen, we're upset. So we want everything immediately. And unfortunately, for a sport and an individual that is just coming into that sport, and that's a teenager from another country, we might have to pump the brakes some on our expectations for Victor Wembanyama. I mean, look at Giannis. Giannis came in similar frame to Victor, and he had to realize, well, I have to bulk up. I've got to do these things. I'm getting pushed around. I'm not able to get where I want to go. And I think Victor is going to realize that. He's going to have to, if he can't rely on his finesse, he's going to have to try to get meaner. I mean, I think Shaq said it. He might have to get a little meaner and just try to bulldoze guys and try to get through these guys and show them that he's no pushover, and show them that he is the next superstar. I believe he is. He's the next big thing in the NBA, and we can talk about him and express our opinions on what we expect him to be right now, but why would we do that? This is his journey, and we have to respect that it's going to be a journey. This guy is not going to be, he might not be LeBron James in year one, but I myself didn't expect him to be that. I expect him to be very good and a solid player, and a player the San Antonio Spurs can build around, and that's exactly what he's turning into, a guy that is going to be special, that they're going to be able to build up after they get a little time with him and get him acclimated to the game, acclimated to the physicality, acclimated to having to play some of these guys that have been there for years, that know what to do. I think we're going to see something that we haven't seen since maybe Kareem or even Wilt, but Kareem came after Wilt, so something we haven't seen in a long time. So, temper your expectations some. Just wait and see. Let the kid grow into his body, grow into his skill set, grow into his age. Let him grow into his talent. Just let him grow. So that's all I got for today, guys. I appreciate every one of you for watching, listening to the podcast. We'll be back next Wednesday, Hump Day. So check out this channel, GOATcast Podcast YT, for the YouTube channel. I'm on TikTok as well, GOATcast Podcast. I don't post as much as I should on there, but I'm going to try to do a little better. Also, guys, if you want to, please check out my other channel, GOATcast Sports. That's where I do most of my posting on there. I do videos, analysis, what have you. And I hope you guys will jump over there, help a brother out. I'm trying to reach 1K over there. Closing in on that. So if you want to, I'll link that channel in the description. And if you enjoy this, please hit us with the thumbs up. If you enjoy it, also subscribe. I try to do this every Wednesday. I'm gonna try to get some guests on here pretty soon, very soon. I'm trying to use different programs, and soon I know I have the watermark. I'm going to sooner than later finally purchase one that I really like, and you won't see the watermarks anymore. So this is just a wait and see thing where I'm just trying to test certain things and see what really works for what I want to do. So once again, thank you guys. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the week, and enjoy your weekend. Enjoy this NBA season so far. It's, last night's game was really, really good. So I'm gonna head up out of here, guys. See you soon.